A majority of Americans support Social Security and Medicare, a progressive tax system, and a government that regulates business in the public interest. But most share deep skepticism about the government's ability to do all this well. The world I want to live in is a world where everybody is a bit more uncertain about their arguments and is a bit more open to other people's arguments. I think that we can engage ideas without ad hominem attacks. Holiday binge buying has deep roots in American culture. Department stores have been associating turkey gluttony with its spending equivalent since they began sponsoring Thanksgiving Day parades in the early 20th century. Economics is all about consumption. People either spend money now or they use financial instruments, like bonds, stocks, and savings accounts, so they can spend more later. If large numbers of people believe they have no shot at a better life in the future, they will work less hard and generate fewer new ideas and businesses. The economy, as a whole, will be poorer. Unlike physics, economists don't settle things. There seems to be plenty of room for different conclusions that are still accepted in the academy. When you see a merger between two giants in a declining industry, it can look like the financial version of a couple having a baby to save a marriage. A healthy economy is largely a result of a reasonable balance between consumption today and consumption deferred, and it's pretty clear that balance has been ridiculously out of whack for a while. Hating Wall Street is an American tradition that dates back even to the days when Thomas Jefferson cursed that money lover Alexander Hamilton. And for centuries, the complaints about it have largely stayed the same. It does nothing. It creates chaos. It's a parasite that sucks hard-working Americans dry. The idea of confidence, of the emotions of the population, is an incredibly important one in economics. John Maynard Keynes called it animal spirit. And if people are feeling generally good about the future, they're more likely to spend money, to start new companies. Companies are more likely to hire people, make investments. Happiness quantification sounds a bit wishy-washy, sure, and through a series of carefully administered surveys across the globe, economists and psychologists have certainly confronted a fair number of sticky issues around how to measure, and even define, happiness. Happiness statistics may be most valuable in smaller, local discussions. Understanding how different sorts of programs affect the well-being of citizens would be enormously helpful to a mayor choosing between building a new bridge or offering a tax cut. Much of what we consider the American way of life is rooted in the period of remarkably broad, shared economic growth, from around 1900 to about 1978. Perhaps concentrated wealth will inspire a nation of innovative problem solvers. But if the view of many economists is right, that it sometimes discourages innovation, then we should worry. One of the great political and economic challenges of our time is figuring out the balance between wealth that benefits society and wealth that distorts. The America that I think most Americans would want, most economists on the right or left would want, is one in which a smart, ambitious, hard-working person without a huge amount of resources has a pretty good shot, in the end, of beating out a less smart, less ambitious, less hard-working rich person. The economy works best when better ideas win out over worse ideas. Harder work wins out over less work, when it's a fair fight in the marketplace. Lots of countries have great constitutions, but their leaders have a practice of ignoring the rules whenever they feel like it. Poverty is not the simple result of bad geography, bad culture, bad history. It's the result of us, of the ways that people choose to organize their societies. It makes me happy to think that this world of art as investment is a minuscule fraction of the art world overall. Most people who create, trade and own art do it for a much simpler reason. They just like it. What we want as an economy is companies and people, working hard to come up with creative ways to be more productive. We don't want companies and people working hard to lobby government for special tax cuts. What there is no dispute about is whether or not China is a currency manipulator. They are a currency manipulator. They actively intervene every single day to keep the value of their currency less than it would be against the dollar than if it floated freely. We think even China barely disputes that. A rule of thumb: if the company you work for provides a product or service that's pretty much the same as what was offered last year and a few years before that, it might be time to start looking for something new. If the American government can't stand behind the dollar, the world's benchmark currency, then the global financial system will very likely enter a new era in which there is much less trade and much less economic growth. It would be, by most accounts, the largest self-imposed financial disaster in history. Reinventing the Bazaar, by John Macmillan, is a great and fun introduction to the wild variety and importance of markets throughout history and around the world. I finally understood how a Middle Eastern souk actually works economically and how to compare that to modern-day telecom spectrum auctions. I love that book. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and